Welcome to EFT for your inner child and soul with best-selling author Cathryn Taylor. Known as the mother of inner child work, Cathryn is dedicated to teaching you her innovative EFT technique called interactive tapping. Interactive tapping combines Cathryn's 26 years of experience guiding you in the discovery of your inner child with EFT sequences. This combination empowers you to take responsibility for your own healing. Cathryn is a licensed marriage and family therapist and addictions counselor and is certified by EFT master Lindsay Kenny. Tune in every other week as Cathryn teaches you how to tap your way through addictions to abundance, through fear to faith, betrayal to trust. And now I'm proud to introduce you to the mother of inner child work, Cathryn Taylor.
Greetings and welcome. Welcome to today's show. I'm Cathryn Taylor, your host, and today we are going to start talking about the difference between speaking your truth and speaking your judgments. We're going to talk about how the law of attractions is interwoven into this whole concept. How can you attract what you want and speak your truth at the same time? So first of all, let's just take this apart. So many times we really feel the need to speak our truth. The way you can tell if you're speaking your truth or you're speaking your judgment is whether you're using the word you or I. If you're saying that you're wanting to speak your truth to somebody, but you're really wanting to just dump on them, and you are taking their inventory and you're talking about their behavior and what they're doing wrong, then what you're really doing is, like I said, taking their inventory. You are simply stepping into your judgment about it. Now, there may be behaviors that that person is exhibiting that you have responses to. And speaking your truth may be sharing what your responses are. But then you use the word I. I have this response. This is being motivated by me. This is my contrast that I need to work out. But you have to set the limits with your own reactivity. So what's beautiful about judgments and about truth is that you can use your judgments and your projections. A projection is when you put onto somebody else something that is out of sync with yourself. Usually what this tells you is that you're out of sync with your higher self, that inner being, that 90% of your non-physical self that holds that higher vibrational energy or frequency for you. And according to the teachings of Abraham, which I'm an avid fan of theirs, any negative feeling is an example of us being out of sync with ourselves, with that higher self. And it's because we're out of alignment. So what happens with the projection is we are out of alignment. That misalignment gets projected onto another person. We get irritable. We get annoyed, and then we get involved in what I call this horizontal dance, where we make it about them. And every experience, if we're on a spiritual path, really is an opportunity for us to come back to the alignment with our higher self, which means we come back to a state of peace, a state of joy. But how do we maneuver between those judgments and speaking our truth? What is our truth? Our truth is really speaking what our response is and what we're wanting. So we can take our annoyance, and that helps us identify what we don't want. But once we know that, we can share our truth from a perspective of what I want. For example, if we're in a situation where we feel like we're not being listened to, or we feel like we're not being heard, or we feel like we're being abused, then at some point we're going to want to share that with that person. But if we want to do it and be in alignment with ourselves and sharing it from the position of what we want to attract, not what we don't want to attract, then we need to do a little homework on ourselves. Before we open our big mouths, we need to really find out what the situation is promoting. So if somebody is ignoring you, what you know that you don't want is to be ignored, to feel unimportant, to feel slighted, to feel disrespected. What you do want is to feel respected, to respect others, to be in reciprocal relationships. So sharing your truth is talking about what you do want. Not necessarily what you don't want. What you don't want is good information for you. What you don't want is for them to act in the way that they are acting. What you don't want is to have this response to their actions. And all of this is just part of your journey to taking more and more accountability. So sharing your truth is sharing your struggle with this. Not sharing what they're doing wrong, but sharing the difficulty in it. I remember in the mid-'80s, I was with this man, and I just kept getting activated into my adolescent rebellion. And I kept trying to work with that, and I kept trying to work with that. And ultimately, one of my final statements to him was, I just had too much of my adolescent on board to stay clear with you. I'm always angry, I'm always rebelling. And this isn't good for me, it's not good for us. I was real clear that it wasn't what he was doing that was eliciting that. It was my response to that. But I just wasn't far enough in my recovery and my health to be able to ward that off. So I had to back away from that relationship because the relationship was like pouring salt into the wound, and I had to let that wound heal. The gift of that relationship was it showed me how much inner work I had on that inner child. Now that I'm talking about the inner child, I want to reference a little bit of what Abraham's 22 emotional guidance scale is. I really like that, by the way. But I approach that differently. What I view is these 24 or 22 different feeling states is I experience them as different vibrational selves. And so at one point, in fact it was in 2007, I did a recording where I tapped down the emotional guidance scale. I started with my most illuminated self, and I just progressively enveloped those lower vibrational selves from that higher vibrational self. So I engulfed them and in essence became the Abraham to those more wounded selves. I find sometimes that I struggle with all of the metaphysical push to shift right away. Well, I can't shift out of a dense feeling if I'm biochemically being cued to feel it. If we've had any kind of post-traumatic stress at all, then we have a certain fight or flight response to certain issues in our lives. It's going to be hard once we've collapsed into that biochemical cascade of hormones to flip. One of the ways that we can do is we can progress not from that collapsed self right to the higher energy where we're seeing it from that positive place, but we need a go-between. And that go-between for me in my world is the adult self. So if I can identify that younger self, separate from her, and respond in a more human capacity to her, in essence, reparent her, then I can then assist her in coming into the higher vibration and get her to connect with my higher self through me. And I'm going to talk more about this in future videos. But I think that our human self has so many different dimensional selves that sometimes when we're given the instruction, just pivot or just think positive, that younger self doesn't have the capacity to do it because we've already created the onslaught of the biochemical response. So we're in it. We're vibrationally in it. And the only way we can get out of that is to not go to the higher self, but to come into present time. Because when we've activated the post-traumatic stress, we've gone back to the past. We can't always get into what it is now until we bring that part into the present with us. So I hope that doesn't confuse you, but that's a piece that I really wanted to be talking about for some time. Today I want to come back to judgment and truth and how you can make use of that. All right, so we're going to do some tapping, and I'm going to walk you through this process so that you get a feel for what it's like to come into awareness of what that judgment is, to follow the threads as to what part of you is feeling that judgment, what that part doesn't want, what you do want, who inside of you can already manifest that desire, And how can you get those two parts working together? All right, so that's kind of the intro to this. Now, if you've never tapped with me before, I encourage you to go to my website, www.cathryntaylor.com, or www.EFTforyourinnerchild.com. And on that website, there is a tab that says, all right, if you've never tapped with me before, then what I would suggest, first of all, is that you go to my website, which is www.EFTforyourinnerchild.com, and go to the tab that says Interactive Tapping Explained. On that, it's got a great video, a 7-minute video by Gary Craig, who's the founder of EFT, short for Emotional Freedom Techniques. And he really gives you a good background about what EFT is and why EFT works. I have a video that is called Interactional Tapping. Now, what I do is I use the tapping. First, I do work with the symptom, but then I use the tapping to interact. So it's not just talking about a part of me is feeling this. It's actually having that adult illuminated self talk to that part. So I create a conversation. We may or may not do some of that today, but that will give you an idea of how my brand of tapping is a little different than traditional tapping. I certainly combine the two, but that website and that tab, Interactive Tapping Explained, again, the website is www.EFTforyourinnerchild.com. And that'll get you started. If you've tapped with me before, then you know that you're tapping on your own volition, that you need to create your own safety, and that you need to be hydrated. So if you have a moment while we're starting to set this up, please hydrate yourself. Okay, and also the disclaimer is that this is not meant to diagnose or take place of any medical treatment that you might have. This is a self-help tool. All right, with all of that said, let's start by coming to the karate. Even though I have this desire to speak my truth, I really want to determine what my truth is. So even though I'm having this reaction to this person, place, or thing, and I need to vent, and I need to vent in a responsible way. So I want to accept that I have to deal with this in layers. So even though I feel like trashing all over this person in the name of speaking my truth, what I want to start out with is speaking this truth to myself, so that I can determine where my reactivity is. And I can work with that before I share my truth with this person that I care about. All right, shake your hands out. We're going to do a couple rounds just on this. First of all, I need to own the fact that I'm triggered. This is built up in me. I'm having this reaction. I want to vent. I want to speak my truth. But is my truth really judgment? Can I forgive myself for being judgmental? For being reactive? What's gotten triggered for me? I need to explore this for a little bit. I can't pivot until I've identified what I don't want here. What am I uncomfortable with? I don't feel trusted. I don't feel heard. I don't feel respected. What's that reaction about? Am I not respecting myself? Can I be respectful in the way that I share this truth? Is their behavior really My responsibility is my reaction to their behavior. Their responsibility. Where's the ownership here? What part of me is getting triggered? Is there a post-traumatic stress to this? When did I feel so disrespected? Not heard? Not trusted? How can I speak my truth in an honorable way? How can I vent to discover what I don't want and then get to what I really do want and share that in hopes that the law of attraction will bring that into my life? What do I want here? And what really needs to be communicated to this other person? Maybe this is an inside job. I know that I want respect, but I want to offer respect as well. I want to be trusted, but I want to trust as well. I want to come back into relationship with my non-physical self, because that's where I can feel the trust, that alignment, that connection. I love this person that I have felt so responsive to. I want to share my experience, but I want to take ownership of my response. I want to do my work on this and then share with the person what the journey was, but only to do that when I've come back to myself. Their understanding my feelings is not a must here. They don't have to understand. If I'm feeling that disrespected, then I need to focus on attracting respectful situations. And this relationship will take care of itself. What do I want out of this judgment? What's the truth that I need to share? And with whom do I need to share it? I know that my life works when I'm in harmony with myself. And I know that when I'm out of harmony, that it's good information for me. When I'm motivated to speak my truth, there's information there for me. But it's not the other person's problem. What they think of me is none of my business. And what I think of them is none of theirs. It's all our inner projection. And intimacy is sharing with such delight what this journey is. How triggered we can get without blaming or shaming. Blaming them, shaming us ourselves. This is rich with possibility. This can be exciting. I can speak the truth of wanting to expand, the truth to use every experience as a way to move forward. And I can do this with others, and I can do it with the younger parts of me as well. I choose to come into harmony with all those within me so that I can be more harmonious in my relationships with others and with my higher self as well. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I hope that's given you some new things to think about, some new ways of approaching judgment, speaking your truth, accountability, expansion. This is all a journey. This is all a delightful journey. And if you can have fun with it and not take yourself so seriously, if you can get to the bottom of what the real dynamic is here, and even give yourself permission to recognize that this may go back to a real tender time, and there may be a whole physiological, biochemical component to it. That's what post-traumatic stress is, folks. When we get triggered, then our body responds as if we're in danger. And if we are in that fight or flight response, it's hard to flip. We have to calm ourselves down and then flip to the present day self, the one that can cope. And then I take it a step further where I have that present day self interact with my past self. I, in essence, become the Abraham to my wounded inner child. So this is just a few of my thoughts on this subject. I hope they've been useful. If anything has been provoked for you and you want to talk a little bit more about it, please take advantage of my free 15-minute assessment. You just have to call me at 612-710-7720, and we'll find a time to do that 15 minutes. That's just when you and I will talk about what your personal situation is, and I'll try to direct you, and we'll try to see what your next best step is. So until next time, be good to you and to those you love. Thanks.